anything about politics. This is the show where you can ask me anything that you like about politics, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the show where you can ask all of your questions about politics, and no one's going to make fun of you for being not up to date, not informed. It's just good faith answers to all good faith questions here on Ask Me Anything About Politics. So if there's anything you've always wanted to know about politics, but you didn't have anybody that you can ask those questions here. There's a lot of misinformation and propaganda running around rampant out there, and so it can be really difficult to figure out what's going on in the government and in your country. And so if you've always wanted to get clarification on something, is this thing real? Is that thing fake? Just go ahead and throw those questions in the chat and we will get to answering them. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. There's no fighting here. There is no harassments. There's no bullying. This is a misinformation-free zone. We do not truck in unverified claims. It is just accurate information and good faith engagement on the substance. Awesome Sauce, great to see you. Thank you for the well wishes. Muzz King, thank you for the roses. JP, great to see you again. JP doing his Professor Farnsworth impression over on Twitch. So yeah, any questions about politics, just throw them in the chat and we will get to answering them. Everybody is welcome here. This is not a fighty show. This is not a debate show. I know there's a lot of shows out there that are really popular where people will argue with each other and then the Democrat calls the Republican a fascist and then the Republican calls the Democrat a libtard, and then everybody has a great Friday, but that's not what we do here. We engage in good faith on the substance. We answer questions in good faith, whether you are left wing, right wing, Democrat, Republican, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. Everybody is welcome here so long as you are commenting in good faith. What's up, Triska? Happy Friday the 13th to you as well. I hope that everybody has a spooky Friday the 13th today. So yeah, just throw your questions in the chat. No such thing as a dumb question. I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it because we just use a bunch of abbreviations and we refer to people by their last names, or there's all these different cabinet positions and agencies, and if you don't know who these people are or what these agencies do, it can be really difficult to be part of the conversation. You hear people throw around words like reconciliation or continuing resolution, and you're like, what the fuck is that? So this is the place where you can ask all those questions. And, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Nothing is too simple for us to get into. I am happy to walk you through even the simplest question about politics. And let's see here. We got a couple of new questions. Retired Fed says, who's going to use the cuffs in Washington? I don't really know what you mean by that. Like, are you saying who's going to get arrested or who's going to do the arresting? Or is that like a sexual thing that you're talking about? Muzz King and Triska, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. Nuggets Lord 123 says, what do you think about small boat crossings across the UK Channel? Do you agree with it? I do not know enough about UK politics to speak on that issue. I'm so sorry, Nuggets Lord. I beg your forgiveness, Nuggets Lord. You and the rest of the Nuggets Regency, I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Fletch Lives Again says, how do things change / get better if J.D. Vance is president? I think that MAGA's hold over the Congress, over other elected Republicans, is significantly weakened if J.D. Vance becomes president. Like, a lot of what Trump is getting away with, he's getting away with because Republicans in Congress are scared of him, or scared of primary challenges, or scared that he's going to sick his followers on him and potentially burn down their house or some shit like that. So, J.D. Vance doesn't have any riz. I don't believe that he will be accepted. I don't believe that he will be, what do you call it? I don't believe that he's going to be able to do the hypnosis that Trump tends to be able to do on the Republican base. Andrew Cabello says, Mossad agent final boss. Are you referring to me? Retired Fed says, who's going to do the arresting? I mean, while Republicans are in charge, they have been sort of like weaponizing the Justice Department against Democrats and people that Donald Trump perceives as his enemies. So, I mean, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel currently, but hopefully we can switch the power dynamics, during the upcoming midterm elections, after the upcoming midterm elections, and then, whatever responsible adult who holds no allegiance to political parties will be the one doing the arresting. Vlad Strong says Epstein wasn't a bad man. Unpopular opinion, Epstein wasn't in the wrong. He didn't for the right reasons. I'm just going to go ahead and block you right now because that's kind of nonsense. Andrew Cabello says, why do you still believe there's an actual difference between Republican and Democrat? That is inaccurate, Andrew Cabello. I'll tell you why there's an actual difference between Republicans and Democrat, which is that Good and Preddy are dead, and they would not be if Democrats were in charge. There are people alive today because of the Affordable Care Act, Democrat policy. There are women who are dead today because of abortion bans, Republican policy. Democrats increase taxes on the rich, Republicans cut taxes on the rich. Democrats enact protections for the environment, Republicans cut protections for the environment. So it doesn't really seem to be any substance to that argument, Andrew. Solomon says, should Britain rejoin the EU? Yes. Ninjas in Paris says, is it really bad to consider yourself apolitical? I mean, I don't know if it's bad. I think it's a little irresponsible, considering the world that we are living in today. But I think that there's a lot of misinformation and propaganda out there that is incentivizing people to kind of like detach themselves from politics and not pay attention to it. In addition to the fact that it is kind of complicated and, potentially purposefully overly complicated. So, yeah, for anybody that describes themselves as apolitical, I would just say I would encourage them to start learning about it and, recognize that politics is coming after you, even if you're not paying attention to it. Odinson, great to see you again, says, what are some ways to eliminate the extreme waste in the federal government? Well, we need oversight. We need legitimate, objective oversight, and the Republican Party has basically killed it. So we had inspectors general, and Donald Trump and Doge fired a whole bunch of them. Oversight. That's the long and short of it. Okay. GB Gray says, do you accept guests? I do, but it's very, very sporadic that I do that. I'm unpredictable in when I allow guests to come up. What's up, Percival? Great to see you again. Yo, Average Joe. Bro Beans. I am not mad at that. Bro Beans. It's a fun nickname. I accept. Josh Sarro, great to see you. How much crime can I get away with while the Dow is above $50,000? Yeah, I guess nothing counts. Nothing matters when the Dow is high. Always sad but truthful says, we are past the tipping point. I mean, in some ways, yes, but we can always fix the things that have been broken. Blanca Falcon says, a lot of people say I don't care about politics. Politics certainly cares about you. 100% accurate. Ivan Cisco says, I'm concerned about the SAVE Act. Do I have to re-register to vote? So the SAVE Act was passed by the House, but it is very unlikely that it will pass in the Senate. It's possible, but very unlikely that it will pass in the Senate. They might try to monkey with the filibuster in order to pass the SAVE Act, but it's very unlikely, I would say. So I would just say, no matter what, regardless of what state you live in or what happens with the SAVE Act, you should always be on top of your voter registration. And just make sure that you're always on there, because depending on who's in charge of your state and local governments, it's possible that Republicans will purge you, depending on who you typically vote for. There's a lot of shenanigans happening that we have to be persistent in, vigilant in stopping. Okay, Fortunate 5001 says, if you could make one change to the current American government, what would you do? One change to the current American government. What would be my one main policy? I would say probably I would add 11 seats to the Supreme Court, maybe something like that. Ed Rumsey says, opinions on an intelligence democracy. I don't know exactly what you mean by that. Oscar says, what ideology do you follow? I am a progressive Democrat. Edmund32 says, why do you care about politics so much? Because I have watched politics make people's lives easier and make people's lives harder, depending on who is in charge. GJ says, both parties suck and kneel down to the top 1%. That is inaccurate. If you want to describe one party as being for the top 1%, it is by far the Republican Party. 75% of all billionaire political donations go to the Republican Party. The Republican Party's platform is a giveaway to the top 1%, where the Democratic platform is for the working class. Additionally, there are more billionaires in the Trump cabinet than there have ever been in American history. So, yeah, not accurate. Jade Lizard says, any urban design opinions? No. Paul Grimm says, go Trump. Paul, I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask a question, but if you keep on just posting pro-Trump propaganda, then I'm going to boot you. GJ says, why do both parties support Israel? I mean, there are more Democrats that vote against Israel than there are Republicans that vote against Israel. Half of the Democratic Senate voted to not send money or weapons to Israel, and all of the Republicans voted to send money and weapons to Israel. So you can miss me with that lie. Dylan H says, ICE, question mark? I'm against them. Tacky's Lover says, do you regret condemning student protests for Palestine? I never condemned student protests for Palestine. Paul Grimm says, Dems raise taxes on the 1%, but they lower them for everybody else. Ed Rumsey, the Republicans raise taxes on the 99%, in case you were curious, Paul Grimm. And I'm going to let you that one slide, Paul Grimm, but if your next comment is not a question, then you're out of here. Caesar says, why are Democrats turning California into a cesspool? California is not a cesspool. GJ says, Kamala and Biden both openly supported Israel. Yeah, but supporting Israel and standing up against AIPAC are not mutually exclusive. I'm talking about what the Democrats are doing right now, GJ, and so, yeah, you can miss me with the both sides nonsense. Muzz King, Triska, Kim Buckman, Willie, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Was that my second or was that my first? I can't remember. We're gonna assume that was the second, I believe. Dark Comedy says, thoughts on Judaism? I mean, I am for Judaism the same way that I am for Christianity and Protestantism and Muslimism and Islamicism and all the various religions. You're allowed to celebrate whatever religion you want in America. JP says, I think J Bean is better. Well, y'all can fight it out in the comments. GJ says, there's something bigger than left and right, brother. That's true. We need to recognize that the billionaire class is trying to get us to fight amongst ourselves, but one party is doing more work for the billionaire class than the other. And so I'm going to constantly remind people that if they want the billionaire class to be taxed, if they want regulations on giant corporations, if they want actual environmental protections so that we can have clean air and clean water and safe food to eat, you got to vote for the Democratic Party. Ed Rumsey says it means different weightings on votes depending on the awareness and intelligence of voters. I feel like that has a lot of potential to be weaponized by bad faith actors. If I could see like some policies that would safeguard that and make sure that it was not being abused and it didn't create like new poll taxes, I might be open to it. But right now, I think it's a lot safer just to say everybody gets to vote and everybody's vote counts the same. Oscar says, what do you think about, I don't know who that is. Percival says, the one change I'd make is open nonpartisan primaries and ranked choice voting for federal elections. Yeah, that's not a bad policy idea. Dylan says, why doesn't the left have a real left-wing party? It does, the Democrats. Odinson says, I would like to see more government initiative in large cities to help those stuck in cycles of poverty. I love that, Odinson. I fucking love that, man. Let's fucking make that happen. Chris Sanders says, thoughts on the attempt to divide our country with an NFL halftime show. The NFL halftime show wasn't attempting to divide the country, but the right-wing reaction to the NFL show was attempting to divide the country. Burger Boss says, doesn't mass immigration contradict Democratic support of unions? No, it does not. Right now, there are farmers whose crops are dying on the vine because of the mass deportation policy of the Republican Party and the Trump administration. So it's not that immigrants take jobs and undercut the unions. It's that employers don't pay enough and squash unions. GJ says, both parties send billions of dollars in forward aid while our country crumbles. That is inaccurate, GJ. While it is true that both parties send billions of dollars in foreign aid, the money that is left over, the Democrats use to try to fix the country. And what Republicans do is just give that money to billionaires. Gibby says, bunch of bankrupt farmers here in Kansas. 100% accurate, Gibby. I'm so sorry that the Republican Party fucked you like that. Zachary Rojas says, Democrats aren't left. Yeah, they are. Confetti Thief says, is it better to have trusted and incompetent or untrustworthy and competent in office? I mean, those are both pretty bad, so I don't know. That seems like a would you rather situation. Burger Boss says, but isn't flooding the U.S. with cheap workers constantly tar away from union bargaining power. I've heard that point made, Burger Boss. I don't buy it. I think that's billionaire right-wing propaganda to convince people to go hard against immigrants. There are all these different narratives that billionaires use to make it seem like immigrants are the problem when billionaires are the problem. And so what we need to recognize is that immigrants coming in and doing jobs that Americans don't want to do is not hurting unions at all. And if you have a problem with businesses being able to pay people who are undocumented less money, then you should talk to your government about regulating those businesses so that everybody gets paid the same, regardless of if they are immigrants or not. The Fixer Mike, great to see you again, says, have you seen the Dow S&P today? No, I have not. Burger Boss says they don't remotely only do jobs that Americans don't want to do, but they mostly do jobs that Americans don't want to do. Talk to anybody that works in construction. Talk to anybody that works in farm work. Talk to anybody who usually would be employing a lot of immigrant laborers. Burger Boss says I see it every day. I have. All right, so then you're lying. Okay, well, I'll see you later, man. Okay, Fortunate 55,001 says, is America built on liberal principles? I mean, in theory, yes. In practice, not always. Okay, let's see here. Eric Likes Cheese says, thoughts on a passive secession if Democratic run states were to withhold their dollars to the federal government. I read a little bit about this when the idea was first being bandied about, and I think it's a good idea, but I'm not sure how effective it can be because the federal government has more mechanisms to hurt blue states financially than blue states have to hurt the federal government financially. So while it is, I think that blue states should do everything they can to push back against the Trump administration, it might be the sort of thing that's like, it mostly looks good on paper, or it's more of a messaging strategy, you know. Like shutting down the government over ICE is, you know, going to be effective in certain ways, but ICE is basically can be funded for the next 10 years, even if the government never reopens. It's still important that Democrats do that, but it has limited effectiveness. I feel the same way about the soft secession movement. John Abbott says most of the money spent on foreign aid isn't sent to foreign countries. It is spent on products made or grown in the U.S., which are then sent to foreign nations. The money is spent empowering U.S. businesses. That is an excellent point, John Abbott. Thank you for reminding me of that. Because, yeah, it is not that foreign aid is going to foreign countries. It is that we are spending money on American products and then sending those products overseas. David says, isn't it true this administration spends more than most GOPs? Is it true that the Trump administration is spending more than previous Republican administrations? That I do not know. But I do know that because of massive tax cuts to the wealthy, the Trump administration is responsible for something like 75% of our entire debt. I think something like that. Gibby says, why do Dems hold their own accountable, but ours, Republicans, excuse? Because Democrats are serious and sincere, and Republicans are just trying to increase their own money and power. Blanca Falcon says, do you think that the aid to other countries is so there's no mass immigration? Thoughts? I mean, that's part of it. Part of helping other countries is in making sure that their citizens don't feel like they have to leave, that they have to seek asylum. But there are other reasons, you know, like when we give foreign aid to other countries, we are potentially stopping infectious diseases from coming to America. Okay, thank you, Blanca Falcon. Kevin House says, either raise wages or drop costs of living. I mean, ¿por qué no los dos? Why can't we raise wages and drop the cost of living? That's been the Democratic platform since forever. Benji says, keeping illegal immigrants purely to do underpaid jobs is borderline slavery. Well, why are they underpaid? Benji, is it possible that the billionaire class is artificially creating financial scarcity because they keep on hoarding money and refusing to pay people for the labor that they do? Percival says, only way it would work is to have a union of states band together. Even then, it would be difficult. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. JG says, thoughts on George Orwell, specifically Animal Farm and 1984? I mean, it seems like the Trump administration is using those things as a manual as opposed to a cautionary tale. Chris says, without debate, what helps Republicans improve the intellectual stream in media within the party? What helps Republicans improve the intellectual stream in media within the party? I mean, I don't know. I find that really difficult to answer, Chris, because I don't really see Republicans wanting to improve the intellectual strain in media within the party. It seems like that's valuable to them, right? Alrighty. Blanca Falcon says it benefits the US, but most don't see it that way. 100% accurate. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. My name is Jared Berenstein, and I'm here to answer all of your questions about politics, regardless of if they are complicated or simple, regardless of if you are a Republican or a Democrat. Everybody is welcome here if you are left wing, right wing, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Good faith questions will be given good faith answers, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you are on. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the place where you can ask all of your questions, regardless of how simple or complicated they might be. Maybe you don't know what reconciliation is, or the filibuster, or continuing resolution. If you don't know who Patel, or Noam, or Bondi are, and you just hear those last names bandied about willy-nilly, like, it can be really confusing. It can be really hard to keep up with what's going on in the government and in the country. So, if you got any questions about politics, just throw them in the chat. Ranza says each form of government is cancerous to the people. I disagree with that. I think democracy is a pretty good form of government. It's probably the best form that exists. So yeah, but thank you for your comment, Renz. Sarah Licou says this country is no longer controlled by Americans, but rather by AIPAC, which funds both parties. It is true that AIPAC funds both parties, but it is not true that AIPAC is the only organization that is funding the parties. Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society. It's the issue is lobbying. It is not just Jews, Sarah. Kevin House says, when do corporations get into family homes? I understand apartments, but not houses. I believe that the big push for buying up single-family homes started during the pandemic because the Fed lowered interest rates to zero so that our economy didn't crash when nobody was going to work because everybody was worried about getting a once-in-a-century virus that was completely novel and we didn't know how to cure. So yeah, basically money was free, so they borrowed and borrowed and borrowed and borrowed and borrowed, and then bought a bunch of single-family houses, and then it was like, if we can corner the market on housing, then then everybody will have to rent for the rest of time, and we get to be the new aristocracy. Okay, Brando says, thoughts on the Daily Wire? It is a right-wing propaganda network. Blanca Falcon says, it was to rent them out at high costs. Accurate. In the left hand says, what happens to U.S. car manufacturers when Chinese cars all over the place in the next few years? That's a really good question. I think that in some ways we're incentivized to allow companies like BYD to sell their cars here in America because they are excellent electric cars that are way cheaper than any other similar options that we have here in America. Having access to the cars will potentially give us access to whatever technology that they use to make our electric cars better. But yeah, that kind of international competition is something that needs to be taken into consideration when you are setting tariff rates and shit like that. I think that this is a bigger problem than just should we allow BYD to sell cars here in America. I think that there are things that we need to be investing in order for our American car companies to be competitive with companies like BYD. I think it's a little short-sighted to just say, all right, well, BYD is not allowed in America then. Blanca says, is a 7% interest rate on a used truck good or bad? I guess it depends on your financial situation. Okay, Sarah says, thoughts on lobbying? I'm against it. Alrighty. Excellent questions so far, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. What's up, Flonkstoss Dragon? Great to see you again. This is the show where you can ask anything that you like about politics, regardless of if it is simple or complicated. If you are a right-wing person, if you are a left-wing person, if you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts, everybody is welcome here, regardless of what your political ideology is. Minty7 says, this guy must know what he's talking about because he's a man who uses big words. Sometimes I use small words, Sometimes oh, God, got a little burps today. Tazka says, thoughts on nuclear energy. I think that we should maintain the nuclear energy that we have. As I understand, there's new technology available for sort of like mini nuclear reactors that can be built much quicker than traditional nuclear reactors. And so I think we should be investing in that as well. But if we're looking at building new nuclear reactors, it seems a little short-sighted because I feel like in that time we can just print a whole bunch of solar panels and start, transitioning our power grid to support renewable energy. That seems to be the smarter move. So I don't think we should be tearing down nuclear power plants, but we shouldn't be building new nuclear power plants because it's going to take like a decade for them to get up and running. Okay, the Fixer Mike says the best kind of nuclear reactor is called thorium salt. It's being developed and will cure all. That's pretty interesting. I mean, yeah, I don't know. There seem to have been major gains made in fusion technology instead of fission technology. So I don't know. I guess it's a race to see which one. Dog That Bites says, this guy, man, this is what happens when you don't read books. I read books, but I'll tell you what I don't read is your comments anymore because I blocked you. Sarah says, New Jersey went green without having a solar plant. Electric bills went through the roof. I don't know how accurate that is, Sarah. I consider you pretty sus based on your opinion on both parties being owned by AIPAC. Kevin House says, if we pay taxes, aren't we already investing? They want us to invest in the market. Double dipping, ? So it is true that the government has been doing things for a while to get us to invest in the market, like Roth IRAs and shit like that. But there is an imbalance in how much we pay in taxes and the government services that we get in exchange. We have been being told for a long time that the problem is we're not paying enough money and we're expecting too much, while the billionaire class has been stealing all of the profit from all of our labor and then hiding them in the fucking Cayman Islands where they're paying like a 0% tax rate. So I think the issue is not what are we getting in exchange for our taxes. The issue is why aren't the rich paying their taxes, and how much better could these services be if they fucking were? How much more could we be getting if the rich were paying their fucking taxes, etc., etc. Alrighty, Fletch Lives Again says, wait, can we really realistically ban lobbying? I don't know how realistic it would be to ban lobbying, but we can definitely fix lobbying and regulate it. FYI says thorium salt reactors can't melt down. That's the key. They're just expensive to get hot first. What's the timeline for when we can get our first thorium salt reactors? The Fixer Mike, what do we think about that? Okay, Sarah says, you consider me sus for questioning both parties? I consider you sus for your like, oh my God, green energy is making electricity go through the roof, and also AIPAC is controlling both political parties. And I'm like, I know exactly what kind of account pushes both of those narratives, and there are people who are trying to get people to be dissatisfied with politics in general and get out of here, So Adam's Garden says the U.S. car production can't compete, therefore there will be no Chinese cars. I don't really know if we can stop it. They're legal in Canada, they're legal in Mexico. I don't know how easy or hard it would be to go up there, buy one, and then just bring it back to America. So, how do we stop it? It seems like there's going to be a deluge of cheap, dope-ass electric cars on both of our borders. Prod says, who in Trump's cabinet do you think will face the fire first? I thought Leavitt would be fired by now. Trump doesn't fire people who go in front of Congress and then throw fucking massive temper tantrums and yell and scream and start fights with Democrats. That's exactly what he wants them to do. So yeah, I don't know if we're going to see any changes in the administration failing any kind of massive pressure campaign from American citizens or Democrats winning in the midterms. Adam's Garden says you can't register them while driving into the U.S. border. If you say so, I don't know. Abe says, at what point does executive power become too powerful in a constitutional republic? I mean, the way that the Trump administration is currently trying to consolidate power and take over every branch of government is too powerful. I think that we need to do a lot to step back from the way that the executive has become overly powerful. I think we need to rein in the judiciary as well, specifically the Supreme Court, because they are kind of, taking it upon themselves to rule in ways that is not usually their purview. Osler says, have you ever read Marx and Engels? I read a little in college. Triskafon says, do you believe capitalism is holding us hostage to the billionaires? I don't know if capitalism itself is, but unregulated capitalism is, without question. Adams Garden, thank you for being here, my guy. I didn't realize you were a regular. This is my first time seeing your name, I think. Triska in the left hand, Muzz King, Kim Buckman, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. And you guys know what that means. It is finger hearts o'clock, the best time of the day. Kevin House says, if you can be in charge of the country, what would you fix first? EDU, housing, justice, etc. I don't know what my priority would be, but this is generally my policy list. End partisan gerrymandering, add seats to the House, rebalance the Senate, add seats to the Supreme Court, break up monopolies, campaign finance reform, climate core, so that we can hire all these people that are losing their jobs from AI to just go transition to the energy grid. Sensible gun control, return independence and oversight to the government, eliminate the presidential pardon, abolish ICE, raise taxes on the rich, Medicare for all, no more money or weapons for war criminals, end fossil fuel subsidies, ranked choice voting. You know, there's a lot of good stuff there. Quixote says, what party is this guy? I'm a progressive Democrat. Adams Garden says, you actually reply to my every comment. You are very meticulous reading the comments. Yeah, you know, I try. Sometimes it gets a little out of control, but I try my best. JEP says, Tesla is still growing in China. I find that so hard to believe because everything I've read about Teslas is that they're bad cars, you know? So, yeah, I don't get it. Oscar says, do you think that Khrushchev ruined the USSR? I don't know enough about it to speak on that. Sarah says, thoughts on bail reform? My neighbor's a sergeant and states he deals with the same criminals weekly. I mean, there is an issue with bail as a system because it basically says if you're poor, everything is a crime, and if you're rich, nothing is a crime. We do have to do something about recidivism rates where people leave jail and then their only option is just keep on doing more crimes, then they go back to jail. I believe that the smartest way to handle criminal justice reform is a war on poverty, meaning let us make it so that people are not struggling in a way where crime is their only option. I believe we will see drastic decreases in crime, all kinds of crime, if we can eliminate the impoverished class in America by making them not impoverished, not by, you know, doing fucking genocide on them. Kevin House says, of that list, which do you think the next administration would move on first? I have no idea. That's a prediction I don't feel qualified to make. I also don't even know what the smartest thing to do first would be. My guess is electoral reform, because I think that part of the reason why the Republican Party have been able to do so much damage and seem so powerful is because our electoral systems give them a massive advantage. And so I think maybe fix that problem and then, you know, you have a much more equitable and representative form of democracy. Adams Garden says, what do you think of Pam Bondi's recent interview in front of the Senate? It should be disqualifying for every single elected Republican. The fact that she did that and every Republican in Congress is like, cool, whatever, I don't give a shit. Like, they all deserve to lose their jobs. Every single elected Republican, from fucking president to dog catcher. Kai Reki says, thoughts on the Sino-Albanian split? I don't know anything about it. Aiden says, are you perhaps related to a family of bears? No, I am not. Oscar says, do you think that violence is justified in a revolution that benefits the people? I don't think that violence is ever justified. If you check out a political scientist named Erica Chenoweth, she has concluded in her research that nonviolent resistant movements are way more productive than violence resistant movements. And so I only advocate for nonviolence in all forms. Quixote says, Democrats aren't left-wing at all, in my opinion. Do I agree? No, I do not agree. They are the left-wing party in this country, and they represent people that are centrist like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and progressive like Bernie Sanders and AOC. Alrighty. Abe says, should voter ID laws be stricter, looser, or standardized nationally? They shouldn't exist. Voter ID laws are a voter suppression tool that the Republican Party has tricked America into passing. If you want voter ID laws, then make IDs free and easy to get. And if not, then we shouldn't have voter ID laws because it's basically a poll tax. Matt GW says, yeah, I agree. It was an embarrassment. Completely agree with that. Kiraki says, LOL. All right, well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Greg the Egg says, where do you think this country is realistically heading? Should we be preparing for anything? I do not believe that we are on an unstoppable road towards fascism. But it is true that the people who are currently in charge of every single lever of power have a fascist agenda. But we are seeing people doing the work of protesting and striking and boycotting and putting pressure on their representatives and on business leaders, etc. And so we are seeing that work working. Maybe not enough, maybe not fast enough, or as much as we would like, but it's definitely working. So if we, the people, continue doing that work, and we recruit more people to do that work, and we convince more people to do that work, then we can go back to having a robust democracy that is free and fair and has oversight and actually gives a shit about the lives of its constituents. If we don't do the work, then we're fucked. Okay. Average Joe says, Pam Bondi, I know I was looking at a human, but there was no evidence to suggest that any personality or soul existed. No arguments here. Flog Sauce says, I second the war on poverty, tax the rich. Have you heard anything about the Sasha Riley story? I have, and I believe it makes sense. Like, I believe that that is the sort of thing that can happen, but I haven't seen enough evidence to say with 100% certainty that it did happen. Matt GW says, it took decades, but we did get Nuremberg eventually. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Sarah says, do you believe the Democrat from 10 to 20 years ago would lean centrist or conservative nowadays? It's a really good question, Sarah. The issue is that there was a conservative backlash / billionaire-funded campaign to AstroTurf, a conservative backlash to Obama being elected in 2008. And so an argument could be made that we were less conservative and racist and more progressive in 2008 than we are now. But it's also, could be explained by saying that the billionaire class kind of AstroTurfed a conservative movement that is making it feel like we are more racist and more conservative than we were back then. The Democratic Party is a big tent, and so they do have people who are part of the centrist wing in them. But if you look at like the breakdown of Congress in 2008 versus now, you have way more politicians who are on the far left, and those people that are on the far left are way further to the left than they were in 2008. So I know you asked about 8 to 10 years ago, but what was 8 to 10 years ago? 2016. Yeah, I think that Donald Trump getting elected kind of invigorated the progressive movement. So we started seeing people like Bernie Sanders and AOC kind of coming more to the mainstream after that time period, and then the progressive movement has just been growing and building ever since then. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. And 5, great to see you again. Kevin House says, how come felons can't vote but they can run for office? I call it the Air Bud rule, where it's like there's no law saying that dogs can't play basketball. There's no law saying that felons can't run for president, unfortunately. Kim Buckman, Triska, and Muzz King, thank you so much for helping me reach my first Finger Hearts goal of the day. Adams Garden says, what do you think about the midterms? Any predictions? So I am loath to make any predictions because while I do believe that in a world where the Republican Party isn't trying to cheat to win the midterms, I believe that there would be a massive blue wave because people are fucking pissed. All the people that Trump convinced to vote for him because he was going to release the Epstein files and bring down cost of living and that, mass deportations were going to solve all of our problems, they are all fucking jumping ship. And we are even seeing people on the right-wing news channels like Newsmax being like, what the fuck was up with that Pam Bondi hearing? And all of those fucking broadcasters like Andrew Schultz and Joe Rogan, who basically put Donald Trump in office, are now going, what the fuck is up with this? They're not going hard enough against Trump, in my fucking opinion. They're not nearly doing enough work to undo the damage that they've caused, but they're definitely not on board with Project Trump these days, the way that they even were in 2020, But the problem is that the Republican Party cheats, and they are going to use the massive power of the federal government to try to suppress the vote, potentially steal voting machines, potentially block roads leading into polling areas in Democratic neighborhoods, use ICE to arrest people who are regularly Democratic voters in swing districts. So yeah, we have to do the work to make sure that they are not effective in stealing the 2026 midterms. We have to make it too big to rig, And we have to be on the phone with our secretaries of state and our local representatives being like, what are our contingency plans for if the FBI tries to steal ballot counting machines? What are our contingency plans for road closures or ICE trying to intimidate people at the polls? Right. Emilio Villegas says, do you think ICE is doing a great job on keeping America in check, like forcing laws and moving U.S. Americans out of the way so they can do their job? No, I do not, Emilio. ICE is running rampant. They are not just going after the worst of the worst. They are torturing and murdering people. They are ignoring people's civil rights and human rights. They are building concentration camps all across this country. Yeah, there are not enough negative things that I can say about ICE. And there have been news stories, I can't remember the exact numbers, but news stories like 35% of all the people who have been hired by ICE are currently under investigation for bribery and abuses of power and shit like that. I forget exactly what, but like they are all going afoul of the law because they have zero hiring standards and they're only training these ding dongs for 47 days because they like that Trump is the 47th president. It's so fucking stupid, you know, Emilio? Righty, let me get back into these TikTok comments. Joey, great to see you again. Says, I just want to get rid of this narrative I'm bi and my Republican friends accept me. I'm sure that they do, Joey, but the Republican Party does not accept you, you know? What the Republican Party does is they give sort of like token acceptance to people so that they join the party and then they turn on you. Like, look at J.D. Vance and his wife, who is Indian. Like, think about fucking, what's that guy's name? Vivek Ramaswamy trying to like do events for Republican voters and they're fucking yelling racist expletives at him and shit like that, you know? They're telling JD Vance that he needs to get rid of his mongrel kids or fucking whatever they're saying, you know? It's fucking disgusting, man. So if there are people in the LGBT community who are accepted by the right-wing people in their immediate sphere, you need to know that the party is not with you in general, you know? The elected politicians are not going to have your back. And the electorate in general does not have your back. All right, Philosophical Peacock says, so many ICE being charged with DV and child crimes. Yes, that is exactly what I was talking about. Hail the Algorithm says, many are January 6ers. I've seen that on social media, Hail the Algorithm. I haven't seen any convincing evidence that that's true. Henry says, what do you think about China and their military expansion at the moment? It's dangerous and very concerning. And the reason why it is happening is because the Trump administration is completely fucking feckless. They have basically given the world to China on a silver platter. They have completely, we have exited our position as de facto leader of the world militarily, economically, morally. And now all of these countries that used to be aligned with us are now running to China for their fucking trade deals, for their foreign aid, so that diseases don't run fucking rampant and stopping poverty in third world nations and stuff like that. Like, yeah, you know, we're giving them like our second most advanced AI chips. We're selling our most advanced AI chips to the Emiratis, who are then going to go ahead and sell them to China. Like, they're lapping us on green energy, which is going to be a massive military advantage to not have to rely on fossil fuels for all of your vehicles. Like, it's unfucking believable what a self-own this is on the world stage. Sarah says, there's a theory going around that Epstein is the founder of Bitcoin. Seems like a stretch to me, Sarah. Henry says, a lot of our businesses were sold under us during the last 3 presidents, and Trump's burned a lot of bridges. Yeah, you know, there are definitely issues with economic foreign policy in other presidents beside Republicans and beside Trump. But goddamn, like, is Trump fucking giving the store away for no fucking reason, you know? Matt G says, laying us on drones, AI, cybersecurity, everything. Yeah, they're fucking killing us on it. Hail the Algorithm says, now during No Kings, which are massive, no riots, all racists are gainfully employed. I don't know what that means, Hail the Algorithm. Joey says the Republican and Democratic Party need a reform soon. Not going to lie. I mean, I don't know if the Republican Party can be reformed at this point. Like, what is the point of the Republican Party except for tax cuts for the rich, Joey? Henry says, yeah, the loss of Canada as an ally is just mind-boggling. Completely fucking agree. Matt GW says he's saying ICE is full of them. ICE is full of January 6th, or... I don't know. Guy Iraqi says, thoughts on Peter Thiel. It is weird that a person who is so mentally cuckoo bananas as Peter Thiel has as much money and power as Peter Thiel does. Like, listen to the words that he's saying when he's like, the Antichrist exists, and it's Greta Thunberg. It is a young girl a young autistic girl who has devoted her life to fighting climate change. Like, that's the devil, my guy? First of all, it's weird that you think the devil is currently living in America, in the world, as a human being, and is not the current president of America, but instead is a girl who has devoted herself to civic service. You know, yeah, the dude's fucking out there, man, and he looks like an alien wearing a ill-fitting skin suit. So, like, all of those people out there who have conspiracy theories about lizard people being at high levels of the government, like, that would convince me just looking at that fucking guy, you know? All right, Hubs 2 Blonde Sweetness says, what are they trying to distract us from with the Epstein thing? Why is everything a psyop? So, Hubs, I don't believe that everything is a distraction. I think that most of the things the Trump administration are doing, they're doing because they want to be doing. And they are also doing so many bad things that we have trouble keeping track of all of them, you know? Is the cryptocurrency that Trump has and is using to accept bribes from adversarial nations, is that a distraction from the Epstein files, or is the Epstein files a distraction from the crypto coin? Are the ICE murders a distraction from kidnapping the president of Venezuela, or is the Venezuela thing a distraction from ICE murdering citizens? You know, shit like that. It's all terrible. The only thing that I would say are just like sincere distractions are just like the hardcore culture war shit, like getting mad at the Bad Bunny Super Bowl show, posting a video of the Obamas as monkeys. You know, that stuff I think we can ignore. Enoch says both parties are a rat's nest of power-hungry demons. That is inaccurate. The Democratic Party is better than the Republican Party. I am happy to argue that 1,000 ways from Sundays. If you would like, Enoch, let me know. Sarah says, thoughts on defunding the police? I think they need more training, but cuts would limit that. I believe that we need to support law enforcement, but there is so much rot within law enforcement that it needs major reforms. We need to purge law enforcement, very specifically of people that are, you know, intimately involved with organizations like the KKK. Like we have the data on this. Like, there are a lot of people in law enforcement who have intimate ties to radical, extreme, right-wing organizations. So, like, that needs to be fixed. But I think that we need to help the police by also not having them do jobs that they are not trained for. Like, we should not be calling the police on people having, you know, schizophrenic episodes on the street. Like, there are social workers who would be much better at handling shit like that than the police would. So, yeah, I believe in diversifying the platforms of the police so that they can more easily do their job. Okay. Flunk Sauce says, did you hear that the death penalty has been taken off the table for Luigi? What's your opinion of the death penalty? I am against the death penalty. It's not a good deterrent. It, you know, based on the data, we know it's not a deterrent. Also, sometimes we put innocent people to death, which is a fucking travesty. So, yeah, I'm not for it. And, yeah, I guess I'm happy whenever anybody is not, the death penalty is off the table for anybody. Average Joe says, would you support legislation to send every member of the Trump administration, every billionaire that gargled Trump's giggleberries and Kid Rock to the island of tariff penguins after confiscating and redistributing every penny of wealth that they own? Seems a little drastic, but I'm open to arguments. Average Joe. And 5 RTN says, what's your thoughts on America's industrial infrastructure and how does it affect economic growth? I mean, we need to be spending more to keep up with our infrastructure, but also we need to be updating our infrastructure. And it limits our economic growth when we are continuing to rely on infrastructure that uses old technology like fossil fuels. Like, as we are developing new green renewable technologies, we should be updating our infrastructure with newer, you know, materials and stuff to make them more resilient and climate friendly and shit. Joey says, I believe in the death penalty because it'll scare people not to do it. I mean, Joey, the evidence says that the death penalty does not scare people into not doing those crimes. Like, there's no data that the death penalty prevents any crimes from happening. Joey, do you want me to send you some information on that? Because I'm happy to send you those articles or those studies, my guy. Barry Lane says infrastructure is old and outdated and we are weak as fuck. Yeah, an argument could be made. Doctor Who says, what do you think about the 1860 election and there being so many parties led to Lincoln? That's way over my head. I'm not a historian. Scott Clower says, cost taxpayers a lot more to prosecute someone with a death penalty on the line. Oh, I didn't know that, Scott, but that makes sense, I suppose. Sir Squincelot says nuclear power is better for the environment compared to most renewable options. I think that the nuclear power we have right now is, but building new nuclear power plants will not be. During the peak of the Biden administration, we were printing a nuclear power plant's worth of solar panels every day. And it takes 10 years to build a nuclear power plant. So you do the math, you know? Okay. Enoch says, Jared, please explain how Democrats were totally unaware of Epstein's crimes. I don't think that every Democrat is innocent in the Epstein files, and I don't believe that Democrats were totally unaware of Epstein's crimes. The Democratic Party trying to release this material to the public in 2019, 2020, and 2023. I can send you the article that explains that if you like. But yeah, it feels like what you're trying to say is that Democrats were asleep at the wheel, but they were not. They were both trying to do something about it, and some of them were implicated in it, and so some of them were responding to political pressure or being blackmailed by Epstein to do nothing about it, you know. Yeah, I think it's really weird that Republicans are in control of the government right now, fully in control of the government right now, and they are actively involved in a cover-up of the Epstein files and all of his co-conspirators. And yet, certain people are like, why didn't Democrats do this earlier? It's like, maybe we can deal with the cover-up that is actively going on instead of making up ones that didn't exist, you know? RoboNoxus says, you have too much info for the right. Their minds aren't smart enough. I don't believe in casting aspersions on other voters. You know, if you want to talk trash about elected Republicans or talking heads like Ben Shapiro, I'm all for it, but I'm not going to say that right-wing voters are any stupider or more gullible than left-wing voters. There are millions of left-wing voters who got tricked into voting for Republicans or not voting at all in the 2024 election. Enoch says, they absolutely were asleep. You're still in fairyland believing your party isn't just as implicated. I never said they weren't implicated. Also, that's not a question, so you are out of here. Carmine says, but the Dow is super good right now. I'm never going to get tired of that joke. EDE says, is our attempted acquisition of Greenland neo-colonialism? Yes. Lever, 2 cases. Would you vote for Newsom if he ran in 28? Not in the primary, but yes in the general, if he won the primary. Oscar says, what do you think about, I don't know what that is. Max says, does left or right give... that's not a very serious question now, don't you think? Hail the Algorithm says, serial killers don't care about death penalty and most other deaths are unplanned extreme. Most other murders are unplanned extreme moments. 100% accurate. Matt GW says, we have no way to get rid of nuclear waste. We just bury and cap it. Yes, but the amount of nuclear waste that has been produced since nuclear energy was invented is so unbelievably small, you know, that potentially we could just bury it in concrete and then wait for the technology where we can either de-radiation it or shoot it into the fucking sun, you know? Mexel says, LOL, wasn't Epstein one of your people? No, he was not. We revoked his Jewish identity. We revoked his Jew card a long time ago. N5 RTN says, has there been a drastic drop in business closures since and before the administration? I would be surprised if there was a drastic drop in business closures. I would not be surprised if there was an uptick in businesses going out of business because of the Trump administration and the tariffs. Rick Johnson, 44, says, you a fan of Tallarico? Yes, I am. OB Dan says, can we make clear there is no new mileage tax in California? It will cost votes. It's spreading. I don't know anything about that policy. D. Scott says, I doubt Epstein was kosher. Yeah, 100%. As Yodor says, why do so many political leaders go to Israel? The AIPAC lobby is extremely powerful. Joey says, was Epstein a Democrat when Trump was? Just wondering. I don't know what Epstein's political affiliation was, and I honestly don't think that it matters. Philosophical Peacock says, nuclear waste has little to no radiation anyways. It's capsuled as a precaution. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, that sounds like great news to me. Jeannie says, do we absolutely have to wait for midterms and hope they aren't tampered with before we impeach? No, we do not have to wait, Jeannie. We can get on the phone with our local representatives and our secretaries of state and demand that they come up with contingency plans for all the various ways that the Trump administration could potentially use ICE or the FBI to fuck with the midterms. We can strike and protest and boycott right now. We can put political pressure on our elected representatives to stand up to the Trump administration. We can put political pressure on business leaders and giant corporations. We can organize, we can convince, we can recruit. There are so many things that we can do, Jeannie, and that we should be doing right now to protect the midterm elections. Hopefully, we can convince enough people to vote for Democrats in the midterms that the entire race becomes too big to rig. Bit Nevo says the California miles check is not real. The bill speaks of starting a program to study it. Oh, that sounds pretty interesting. And totally fucking tracks, you know? Alrighty, let's see here. N5 RTN says political pressure is a must for citizens. Civilians prioritize the rights of the Constitution. Accurate. Kim Buckman, Triska Muzzking, thank you so much for helping me reach my second Finger Hearts goal of the day. So I'm going to try to do this new thing next week. I'm going to try to memorize that one dude's monologue from Andor. And I'm going to have like a big gift goal that if we hit that gift goal, I'll do the monologue for you guys. Okay, let's see here. Average Joe says, we can name the island either Little Donnie's D's or Obama's Nobel Peace Prize. That's pretty funny. John Abbott says, thoughts on France threatening to seize Musk's assets as part of their Grok CSAM investigation. I am for Europe holding American business leaders to account. I don't even know if fucking is an American business leader. I don't know where he is a civilian, where he is a citizen of, you know. Lindsay Triska, thank you so much for helping me reach my third Finger Hearts goal of the day. And so in honor of Bad Bunny, we are now going to, where are you? The Rosa icon. Okay, where are we at? So yeah, I'm down with Europe. I'm down with France fucking, you know, dragging Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and all those fucking ding-dongs. Joey says, we should call Epstein Island the Clinton Rich Island. Who's the rich? And why are we not putting Trump's name on that island also, my guy? Luke Myers says, smooth or creamy peanut butter? I don't like peanut butter, but I guess I go smooth. SP Custom says, would it help to abolish political parties? I don't know how that would work when we could just have like informal coalitions, you know, like there's no technical progressive party, but there is a progressive coalition of candidates. Like Zoran and AOC are part of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Like, I don't really believe that, you know, billionaires and right-wing pseudo-fascists are not going to be operating as though they are a political party, even if we made political parties illegal. Alrighty. Mexcel says, I hope Democrats win so this country can finally fall. I am an accelerationist. I don't really think it's a productive comment, Mexcel, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to be better in the future before I block you. Alrighty. Matt GW says, just don't give up thinking it's hopeless. That's what they're counting on. 100% Matt G, 100%. Shout that from the fucking rooftops. Alrighty, let's see here. Joey says, that's the rich Trump, LOL, plus the other ones. I mean, I don't know how rich the Clintons are, but they probably could fall under that category as well. Alrighty. Fudge Knuckle says, what would it take for this country to actually consider a third viable party? Seriously, can I just tell you, Fudge Knuckle, how much I love it when people with hilarious screen names ask me substantive questions? There is nothing more that I like that Two in the Pink asks, what do you think of the emoluments clause, you know? So yeah, what would it take for this country to actually consider a third party? We would need ranked choice voting, because as it stands, any additional party besides the two main would only act as spoiler candidates. The Republican Party is hostile to ranked choice voting, so if we want third parties, we need ranked choice voting. The only way we get ranked choice voting is by voting for the Democratic Party. Thank you for your question, Fudge Knuckle. Please continue asking substantive questions with that hilarious screen name. Daniel Lee says, if we weren't smart, would we be at the bottom of the food chain? Potentially. Like, we're not the strongest or the fastest of all the things in the food chain. Percival says, it's not political parties that are ruining things, it's money and lack of ranked choice. 100% accurate, Percival. Bit Nevo says, in response to oligarchs attempting a coup, thoughts on nationalizing SpaceX, Tesla, Google, etc. I believe in socializing certain industries to compete with the privatized version of those industries. So socialized healthcare, public college, socialized housing, things like that. The government, acquiring SpaceX and Tesla and Google, that seems a little fashy to me, and I believe that there are people out there who think that that is what the Democratic Party wants to do. And so, I have not heard a substantive argument for why that isn't a massive overreach. I think a way smarter thing would be to break those companies up, kill the monopolies, as it were. All right, N5RTN says the IRS employees owe $10 billion in taxes and Trump is trying to sue the IRS for $10 billion. Why? Do IRS employees owe $10 billion in taxes? That is news to me. And Trump is trying to sue the IRS for $10 billion because it is a very easy way for him to steal our tax dollars and put it directly into his pocket. All right. John Abbott says Musk has citizenship in the U.S., South Africa, and Canada, but allegedly he lied on his application for U.S. citizenship. And if so, his citizenship should be revoked. No arguments here. Not that it matters, since he could just throw $5 million at Trump to buy a citizenship gold card. 100% accurate there. Matt G.W. McManus says, what do you think about them trying to force crypto Fed Reserve when they try and monopolize crypto? There is no real good use case for crypto except for crime and speculation, like gambling, basically. So a Federal Reserve of crypto is just going to be another mechanism by which Trump puts our money in his pocket. Like, which crypto do you think they're going to want to buy a surplus of to have in the reserve? It's obviously going to be World Liberty Financial Trump coin or some shit like that, Service Quincelot says, what are your thoughts on term limits for congressmen? I am for them. Let's see here. I'm going to do my outro, guys, because my throat's getting kind of tired. But get in your final questions. I always take questions after the outro. Thank you to everybody who was here today for all of your gifts and all of your likes and your shares and your supports. I appreciate all the support that you guys give me, whether it is the free kind or the paid kind. If you want to do the paid kind, you can, but you don't have to. I know that we are all struggling. But if you have the means and the desire, the mechanisms are there for you. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send emotes on Twitch. You can become a super fan on TikTok. You can become a subscriber on Twitch. And if you are an Amazon Prime member, you can become a subscriber to my Twitch channel for free. It costs you $0 and it helps me out a ton. Special thanks, and you can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Special thanks to all of my patrons on the various platforms: Robert, Shannon, Carmine, Patrick, Melissa, the two Seans, Dan Blackroyd, Pliff, Taryn, Lauren, Triska, and It's the Rocketeer. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, so we will be back streaming on Monday, even though it is a federal holiday. If there are any questions I was not able to get to on this live stream, do not be shy about reaching out. I want to be a resource for y'all to be more informed and more involved in politics. So do not be shy about reaching out to me. Use me and abuse me. Use me until you use me up. You can send me a DM. DMs are open. You can email me through my website, or you can hit me up on my Discord channel. We may be migrating from the Discord to a less evil platform. I don't really love all the shit they've been doing lately, but that is a process that is still in transition. So it is still valuable to join the Discord. It still exists as of this moment. And the Discord is great because there's recommendations on there for books and podcasts, and also for actions that you can take as a citizen to try to help solve these fucking problems that we've all been fucking talking about on this whole goddamn fucking live stream, my guy. There's civic action that you can do there. There's organizations that you can join that are already doing this great work, like Indivisible or Run for Something or Vote Save America or Swing Left. Swing Left has the best ground game right now with this initiative called Ground Truth. I highly recommend it. These organizations need you. They need your time. They need your money. they need your bodies. So go out there and do the work. You don't have to start your own political action group. You can already join people who are doing this work. And it is only through people like you and me doing this work that we're going to be able to get out of this and stop our fucking fascist decline that is currently happening, where we're all going to be fucking serfs to the billionaire class, drinking up the fucking sludge from their chemical factories, we're all going to be getting fucking cancer. What the world that the billionaire class wants, and the reason why they give the Republican Party so much money, is they want a world where Aaron Brockovich was not able to sue those companies. So we all just fucking get cancer from the water, and then we just have no recourse. We just have to fucking take their cancer and then, fucking be happy about it, All right, Max Schmidt says, what fascist characteristics exist in the U.S. right now? Masked agents of the federal government murdering and detaining people without reading them their rights or arresting them for anything, and detaining them illegally after judges tell them that they're not allowed to. Consolidating power, attacking institutions of higher learning, attacking the media. Consolidating power. I could go on. Jack Finn says, is Gavin Newsom really a good presidential candidate? Yeah, I think so. I don't think that he's not my number one, but he's definitely good. Chad Bitson says, what's the best hope core you got for this political nightmare? I just finished reading a book called Giving Up is Unforgivable. That is my best hope core for this political nightmare. So Giving Up is Unforgivable. I forget the name of the author. I'm going to put it on my Discord channel under the recommendations tab. So check out that book if you need a little hopium. The book is called, again, Giving Up is Unforgivable. I fucking love that book. It's fucking great. Highly recommended. And it's not a long read either, Okay, JP says, leave my body. Okay, I'm listening. Just yours, JP. We've all heard the stories. Jesus' first phone says, politics. What's that all about? It is how we discuss what our government is doing. Alrighty, let's see here. Spicy says, I got separated from the army because suddenly my 5 years active don't mean nothing because I'm trans. I'm really sorry to hear that you got fucked by this administration, Spicy. Alrighty. Carmine says, are we beefing with Discord now? They've been doing things that are a little shady lately, so we're looking into it. We're looking into migrating from Discord to something else. Okay. Luke says, I'm a Scottish nationalist married to an American communist. How do we navigate? You'll have to be more specific, man. I don't know what that means. Sarah says, do you personally invest? If so, do you feel like it contradicts with some of your values? I try to put some of my money into ESGs, which are exchange traded funds that follow green technologies and don't invest in things like BlackRock and stuff like that. But you can't be a perfect scion if you want to also exist in America today, And so I just tell everybody, make the sacrifices that you are willing to make. My wife is a progressive warrior, just like myself, but she's also pregnant, so she's allowed to eat a Chick-fil-A, even though I think that company is fucking evil as shit, So we all do what we can, We all do what we can. It's not about being perfect. It's just about being better. Alrighty. Nathan, no need to apologize. Ramona the Brave says, are you right, left, or middle? I am left. Joey says, congratulations on the baby. Thank you so much. My wife, we got about 2.5 months left, and my wife, it can't come soon enough. We would fucking love to just skip to late April, Lemmy Gardenmeister, the author of Giving Up is Unforgivable, is named Joyce Vance. I remembered that she had the same last name as J.D. Vance and that they're indeed not related. Okay, Namey Mochi says, skip to the good part. Don't know what that means. Nathan says, hell yeah, dude, I hope life gifts you well, dude. Oh, thank you very much. Jesus' first phone says, how can politics become better in your opinion? I think that people need to talk more in person and need to recognize that the people on the internet are mostly fake. Most of these people are not real. The left-wing people that you are seeing who are saying shit that you disagree with, the right-leaning people who are trying to start fights with you, all of these are fake people. There's no value in thinking that the voices that you are hearing on the internet are real. Talk to people in real life and try to get on the same page. Try to live in a shared reality. You know, like if I'm talking to somebody who thinks that Biden was a clone, like it's impossible for us to come to any kind of understanding about what good politics would look like going forward. So, De Gold Horse says Trump won. Cry harder, libs. Somebody already blocked him, which thank you to whoever did that. Dylan Tohara says, dude, I want to hear your take on historical materialism. I don't really know what historical materialism is, my guy. Jeannie says, what's a good way to educate my spouse on how bad this administration is? I would recommend a book to you called The Persuaders by Anand Giridharadas. So that will tell you all you need to know about discussing politics with people that you may or may not agree on. Okay, Bearded Grandma says, hey Jared, how you doing? I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Grandma? I gotta say, I'm surprised that you're still alive because we buried you like a couple decades ago. But if having you back on this earth means that you gotta have a beard, I'm fucking down with that, Nona. It's great to see you again. Alrighty. Yeah, all these books that I recommend are on my Discord channel on the recommendation side of things. The only one that's not there yet is Giving Up is Unforgivable by Joyce Vance, so just make sure that you write that one down. Luke So says, to expand to love my country and our cultures, I don't agree with communism, but I love my wife. Okay, well, what kind of communism does your wife like? Because if it's just supporting employee-owned companies, maybe that's something that you could get behind as well. All right, everybody. Thank you, Ramona. I really appreciate that. Carmine says, what starts with D and ends with money? Dumb money? D money? Dumb money. D money. Dark money. Ah, I'm a fucking idiot. Damn it. You got me, Carmine. You fucking got me, man. Boy, oh boy, is my fucking face red. Okay, Average Joe says, okay, if he was a clone, why the fuck would they make the clone as brain dead as the original? You should see how old the original was, man. The clone was younger than the original, my guy. All right, everybody, I'm gonna get out of here. So let's all just get in. Come in here. Huddle up, guys. Huddle up. Let's be clear about something, guys. All right. I want y'all to have a great weekend. I want y'all to do the work. I want you to be good to each other. You don't have to be a dick to other people to do the work. I want you to be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. The way that we do this work with our whole ass and our whole heart is by resting and recuperating when we can. I take the weekends, of course, because I do my live streams Monday through Friday. So yeah, be good to yourselves. Do the work. And I will see you guys on Monday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Take care, everybody. Have a great